Hello everyone and welcome back to Geotech Masters. In our previous episode, we learned how to identify the genetic group of a rock and give it a proper engineering name. Now we are moving to the next critical step. We are going to learn how to describe the rock material itself. In this episode, we look at two very visual properties, color and grain size. You might think describing color is easy, but in engineering, we cannot just say a rock is gray. We need to be precise. We will learn how to turn subjective observations into objective data. We will stop using creative names like battleship gray and start using the standardized terms that engineers around the world understand. Let's refine your geotechnical eye.
Before we begin, let's consider a few questions. Have you ever argued with a colleague about whether a rock was reddish-brown or brownish-red? Does the order of those words actually matter? Also, how does lighting affect what you see? If you are logging core inside a warehouse under fluorescent lights, are you seeing the true color of the rock? Finally, when we look at grain size, how do we handle rocks that have both big crystals and a fine background matrix? We need a system to describe these details accurately. We will answer all of these questions in this video. Let's start with color. The main goal here is to limit subjectivity. We want different people to describe the same rock in the same way. To do this, ISO 14689 provides a simple system in Table 1. We build a color description by selecting terms from three specific columns. We look at the lightness, the chroma, and the hue. We do not invent new colors. We stick to the standard list. For example, we combine these terms to say light yellowish-brown or dark reddish-gray. This standardized vocabulary ensures that a design engineer in an office understands exactly what the field geologist saw on site. Let's break down how to build this description using Table 1. First, we look at the tertiary descriptor, which is lightness. Is the rock light or dark? If it is neither, we leave this blank. Second, we look at the secondary descriptor, or chroma. This modifies the main color. The standard terms are words like pinkish, yellowish, greenish, or grayish. Finally, we pick the primary descriptor, or hue. This is the main color family. The standard allows terms like red, orange, yellow, green, blue, white, gray, and black. So you might combine them to get dark greenish-gray. This simple system covers almost every rock you will encounter. Rock is nature, and